What's going on, y'all? Machiavelli Mills TV. Y'all hit that like button and hit the subscribe button. So, let's address this whole Asante Samuel versus Deion Sanders versus Shannon Sharpe situation. So, former cornerback, NFL Pro Bowl cornerback, Asante was like a 4-time Pro Bowler. First, Deion Sanders, was discussing his dislike for the T-step technique that defensive backs use, right? Deion was basically calling it silly, calling it dumb, in so many words. And so Asante Samuel, a cornerback who used the T-step technique, he took exception to that, and he was basically calling out Prime for saying that it was dumb. Then after doing that, Asante Samuel, I guess because he was getting into a back and forth with fans who was telling him, yo, how can you question Deion Primetime Sanders? He is the GOAT of all cornerbacks, and he absolutely is, right? They're like, how you gonna say that about Prime? And he is the best defensive back, the best cornerback to ever walk this earth. And so after he got questioned by some fans on Twitter, Asante Samuel goes and posts his statistics, his stats, alongside Deion Sanders, showing that, hey, we got similar numbers and interceptions, so on and so forth. So, like, how can you say he really basically almost kind of positioned himself as being just as good as Prime, right? Which we all know is not true. It's not true. Asante was very, very good. He's going to be in a Hall of Fame one day, I believe. He should be in a Hall of Fame one day. But he's very good. Deion Sanders was a Pantheon great. A football giant. You understand me? The term shutdown corner was made because of him. And everybody know it. While I've disagreed on certain things that Prime has said and done at certain times, I can never take away Prime's his status as one of the football gods with a lowercase g. Like, I can never take away that status at all, right? And Asante and Prime, they not in the same stratosphere. Right? And that's not saying Asante was bad at all. Asante was he was a great player, but very good. Great player. Deion Sanders was Pantheon great, right? So anyway, when he got caught up in, trying to compare his numbers to Prime and all of that, Shannon Sharpe and Ochocinco, they discussed it on Nightcap, right? And Shannon gave Asante his credit. Asante was a great player. He had a hell of a career, but nobody putting them two in the same conversation at all. They're not in the same conversation. They're not in the same category. Asante was a great player, but Prime was just something else, something completely different, right? And it was like, yo, the T-step technique, it worked well for Asante. It didn't work well for Prime. It is what it is. So Asante Samuel, he heard this from Shannon Sharpe, and then he started basically saying that, Shannon Sharpe just going to go with Prime because that's his boy. And he got to say, he got to pick Prime because if he don't, Prime, will basically Prime will get mad at him, so on and so forth. And he you falling into the marketing of everything. Yo, Prime was marketed a certain way and you falling in with that. But, you ain't, basically in so many words, like Shannon is biased, is what he's saying, right? So, and he started saying some other stuff too that was a little wild, a little bit, right? A derogatory term he said to Shannon. Shannon was like, he was pissed about it. Like, hold on, wait a minute. You coming at me and I bigged you up. I said you were a great player, right? I said you had a hell of a career. I just said you weren't in Prime's realm. And everybody know that. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody knows that. You're not in his realm at all. And then Shannon Sharpe says, you know what, matter of fact, you're not in the realm of a lot of other elite Pantheon great quarterbacks, even though you were cornerbacks. He said, even though you were a great corner, you know what I'm saying, you're not in the same realm as some of these other guys that I can name, right? And he starts naming them off. He starts naming individuals like Mel Blount, Aeneas Williams. He starts naming guys like Champ Bailey. He starts naming Night Train Lane. He starts naming Rod Woodson, Charles Woodson. He starts naming Darrell Daryl Ring, so on and so forth. He started naming a whole bunch of names. And then he asks Ocho, all them guys I just named, which one are you putting Asante over, right? And in this conversation, Chad refuses to answer the question, right? He like, well, what do you think, Unc? What you think, Unc? Shannon Sharp like, no, Chad, I'm asking you. I'm asking you to state your opinion. Don't ask me. I'm asking you, who would you put Asante over out of all of these great cornerbacks that I've named? Who are you putting him over? And then Chad Ochocinco, Chad Johnson, he responds again. Well, what do you think, Unc? What do you think? Shannon like, hold on, wait a minute. You know a lot of these dudes that I'm naming. You played against a lot of these dudes. You played against Charles Woodson. You played against Darrelle Revis. You know what I mean? Like you played against these individuals. Like, why you can't give an opinion about the guys that I'm naming? Why you can't state your opinion? And it all comes down to the fact that Shannon is frustrated because he like, Chad refuses to criticize any of these players. He always fence straddles. He always on the fence every single time it's time to give an opinion about these athletes. He don't want to say nothing. He don't want to have 1 ounce of criticism for the players. And that doesn't make for a good show. And I know Shannon gets frustrated with it because he's like, bro, you're paid to be an analyst. You're an analyst. Why are you want the title of being an analyst without actually critiquing players? And it don't work like that. It does not. Chad has a lot of aspirations of being on a lot of different TV programs and TV networks as an analyst. That is going to hurt your resume. It's going to hurt your credibility and prevent you from being on a lot of these TV shows that you want to be on because they're like, yo, you are not objective. You don't want to state the real. You don't take a stand on anything. And nobody likes an analyst who don't take a stand on nothing. Every time they play in the fence, they neutral. Come on now. Like, no. That's not how you're supposed to be, man. Like, the man was afraid to even admit. And when you admitting these things, when you admit that Darrelle Revis, when you admit that Charles Woodson, when you admit that Mel Blount, when you admit that who else I'm naming? I named a lot of guys. Night Train Lane. When you admit that Rod Woodson is better than Asante Samuel, you're not saying he garbage. You're not saying he trash. You're not saying he was slaw, as my people in the South say. You're not saying he was just a terrible player. No, but those guys are in an elite tier of as far as DBs or cornerbacks go. For sure. And it's nothing wrong with saying that. But Chad, he afraid to just to admit that so much. I'm like, damn. Dude, Asante got some dirt on you or something? Do he got pictures of you, you know, when you was with Rail laid up with 5, 6, 7 strippers somewhere and you don't want it to get out? You feel me? Like, what's going on? I know what it is. Asante Samuel is from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, right? He's a Florida boy like Chad, and Chad is biased towards him. But honestly, he wouldn't even have to be from Florida. Chad don't want to criticize nobody. And Unc Shannon Sharp brought this up. You don't want to see guys out in public and then have to have these talks about it, so on and so forth and all of that. And Chad act like, no, that ain't the case. I ain't worried about nothing about that. Chad, yes, you are. Yes, you are. Because Chad can easily criticize organizations. He can criticize the NFL. He can criticize, franchises, like I said, agents, so on and so forth. But when it comes to a player, he always on the fence with everything. And it's like, dog, have an opinion. Have an opinion, man. Come on, man. Like, that would hurt the credibility of the show if every time a great debate is happening and we know Chad is going to ride the fence. He's not going to be on one side of the fence or other. He is going to play straight down the middle every single time. That act gets old. You know what I mean? And Chad got to take it more serious. He got to take that more serious, man. Like, come on, man. Like, you have a show where you're being critical of athletes. State your opinion. It's okay. It's okay. You can't be so scared to just always to say your opinion and say how you really feel, man. Ain't nobody got time for that. Like, you trying to play like you don't know, you don't want to say this, you don't want to say that. Like, nah, man. Like, always beating around the bush. You know, like when it comes to, he look at every athlete like they one of his partners. And it don't gotta be like that, man. It don't gotta be like that. Saying that Rod Woodson, Charles Woodson, Champ Bailey, Mel Blount, again, Chad didn't play against Champ. He didn't play against Charles Woodson. He didn't play against Mel Blount. When did Rod Woodson retire? I think he was still playing when Chad was playing. Rod Woodson was still playing, right? He didn't play against the real Revis. So why he played against Asante? Why you can't say, hey, look, man, Asante was a great player, but yes, I do have those guys ahead of Asante. I love Asante, but I got those guys ahead of Asante. Why can't you say that? You know, like, he's not going to be taken serious in sports media until he finally figures out he can't fence straddle all his life. You know what I mean? Chad was one of my favorite players growing up. Like, really, real talk, I would play with the Bengals on Madden strictly because Chad was on the team. Chad was super entertaining. He was fun to watch. He was box office, had his feet. Man, his footwork, man. Oh, my God. He has some of the best feet in the NFL I've ever seen. You know what I mean? Route running ability, all of that. Chad was a big money receiver in his prime years, right? He really was. And always super entertaining. And he wasn't afraid to go at the DBs when he talking trash. Now, it was friendly, but he was always talking trash. He stood on his ground and stood on who he is as a player. Why can't you do that when you're giving critiques and you're giving an opinion about these athletes? They get so frustrated. And I know Shannon be like, dog, come on, fam. If we want to keep this show growing, you're going to have to get out of that. You're going to have to get out of that. I'm afraid to say what's real. I'm afraid to tell the truth about this athlete, that athlete. Ain't nobody got time for that. Like, y'all remember, ain't nobody got time for that. I said, Jesus, it's a fire. But y'all know, man, like, come on, man. Like, that is, like, really aggravating. He never take a stand on anything. Come on, man. You can't be objective to save his life. And he got to stop that, man. Cut it out, Chad. I love you, but cut it out. Machiavelli Mills TV, y'all. Y'all hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'm out, y'all. Peace.